I want you to join us right now, wherever you are. Just a really simple scene, a very specific one. You're sitting across a wooden table from someone you care about. And the soundscape, it isn't dominated by, music or a TV. It's subtle. You can hear the quiet clink of chopsticks against ceramic, the gentle rhythm of chewing, and, well, if you really pay close attention, the shared, steady breathing of two people just existing side by side. The food is simple. Maybe some steamed rice, warm miso soup, a few salty, bright pickled vegetables. It's late afternoon, so the light is soft. Maybe there's just a single lamp casting this gentle glow over everything. And here's the central conflict for this deep dive. If you found yourself in this exact quiet scene saying nothing, I think most people in our modern, noisy world would instantly feel that tension start to rise. They would call this silence empty or, awkward. It feels like a space that just has to be filled. Instantly, with a nervous laugh or someone picking up a phone or just launching into some urgent story about their day.
But that emptiness, that feeling that a space has to be filled, that's a profound illusion. And here's the very first paradox we run into when we commit to a quiet space. Silence isn't simply the absence of sound, the muffling of external noise. Instead, it is the radical presence of everything else.
That's so counterintuitive for most of us. We define silence by what it lacks. But you're saying silence is actually a state of abundance. So how does that change the experience of something as simple as dinner?
Well, when the striving, the need to explain yourself, to perform, to narrate your life, when that falls away, awareness it expands. Perception sharpens in a way that words tend to dull. And all of a sudden, the taste of the rice is vivid. It's not just filler. You can sense its warmth, its faint sweetness. You can almost recall the memory of rain and sunlight that made that grain of rice possible. The flavor itself becomes a story told without any adjectives.
So you stop just consuming and you start tasting the world itself. I get that. You're engaging with the object, not just using it as fuel.
Precisely. Even the texture of the bowl against your fingertips, the roughness of the clay, its specific warmth, that becomes a language more profound than any words. This is the silence of deep connection because it needs no translation. It doesn't demand filling. It is the necessary overflowing space where we enter into the most profound kind of action, just being present.
Okay, let's unpack this cultural pressure we feel then. Because we're constantly performing for each other, even over a casual meal, we feel like we need to impress or explain or entertain. So what happens the moment we intentionally drop that armor? Because for a lot of people, that feels less like connection and more like emotional coldness.
That intentional drop, that's often called the act of emptying the cup. We can use the classic Zen analogy here. An old master is serving tea to a visiting scholar who is just talking endlessly about his own knowledge, his doctrines, his achievements, and the master just keeps pouring the tea until it spills over the rim and all over the floor. The insight is so simple. You are full of your own noise, your opinions, your need to control the narrative. How can you truly receive anything? The taste of the rice, the presence of your companion, the truth of this moment, unless you first empty the cup. Silence over dinner is precisely that emptying process. We stop trying to narrate life and we begin to taste it exactly as it is.
I really appreciate that image, but I have to ask on behalf of the skeptical part of our audience, if I just suddenly stop talking to my partner mid-sentence and start staring silently at my bowl of soup, aren't they going to think I'm angry or mad or just emotionally closed off? How do we make sure this shared silence isn't just seen as avoidance?
That is a crucial question. The difference is all in the intention. Avoidance is retreating, it's putting up walls. Presence, in this context, is about radical trust. It's courageous to drop the armor of words and just sit with open awareness. See, true silence isn't a tool for manipulation, it's an offering. If your companion senses anxiety or anger in your silence, well, that isn't silence, that's just noise being held captive. But if you truly offer open presence, the whole atmosphere shifts. It invites the other person into that same space of rest.
Gotcha. If we can manage to commit to that radical trust and just be together, what does the stillness actually give us, practically speaking?
Well, the first and maybe most liberating change is your relationship to time. When you're performing, you're always chasing the next thing. In stillness, the clock is still there on the wall, but your mind, it stops chasing it. Minutes don't rush or drag, they just are. You realize you stopped eating in order to finish, and you started eating because you were eating. The focus shifts from the goal to the process itself.
That makes any meal kind of mini vacation, just by shifting your intention. So if I stop eating to finish, what do I start noticing in that extra minute or two?
You start to notice the sacred arriving in the most ordinary moments. As the Zen thinkers like to say, the most sacred moments arrive in slippers, not robes. They sit down across from you without any fanfare because everything worth saying is already shimmering in the space between you. The act of nourishing the body when you do it with total attention becomes a simple, grounding form of prayer.
And that trust, the trust that your quiet, unadorned presence is enough without all the cleverness or constant commentary, that's the real rebellion, isn't it?
It is the quiet rebellion against haste and distraction. This is really the core of concepts like shikantaza, which just means just sitting. You're not sitting to achieve enlightenment or to clear your mind. You are just sitting. And similarly, there's fukan, just eating. It's this powerful idea of being together with absolutely no agenda, no script, and no story to tell later. You are just fully, completely inhabiting this moment.
You know, most modern meditation is so goal-oriented. We meditate to reduce stress, to increase focus, to become better at something else. But you're saying the practice of shikantaza or shokan is just about the act itself. The peace is a byproduct, not the target.
Exactly. When you drop the goal, you drop the striving. The peace you're looking for isn't something you earn. It is already the ground beneath your feet. It's already here, just waiting, right underneath all the noise we mistake for connection. And that simplicity is what allows something ancient to awaken in us, a memory deeper than language that tells us we are already whole.
Okay, let's lean deeper into the texture of that quiet. We've established that silence is full and dropping the noise is essential. But what if this quiet dinner isn't just a moment of peace, but something more active, like a riddle, a living koan designed to shatter our ordinary logical way of thinking?
That's where it gets truly fascinating. The quiet transforms the mundane dinner table into a dojo, a training ground for the mind. We can frame the whole experience with a koan that's very relevant for our modern lives. What is the sound of silence over dinner?
Okay, my logical mind immediately squirms with that. Because if I truly listen, I hear my own heartbeat, the low hum of the fridge, the sound of my companion shifting in their chair, and most definitely the incessant chatter of my own thoughts, which are usually, did I remember to feed the cat? Or I really hope I don't spill the soup. It's not actually silent, is it?
And right there, you see the koan revealing itself. We mistake real silence for the absence of noise, but real silence is the unshakable presence of awareness. The koan forces you to look at the noisy mind that's trying to define silence. The more you try to achieve silence by pushing thoughts away, the further you get from it. The sound of silence is the presence that registers the heartbeat and the hum, and the cat worries without judgment, without needing to fix any of it.
I love that. It forces us to admit that the silence is only awkward because we're supplying the noise. Now, I was reviewing some of the background for this, and I kept struggling with Master Digen's teaching. It's beautiful, but complex. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be actualized by the 10,000 things. Can you unpack that for us using the dinner table?
That quote is the ultimate instruction on how to use silence. When we are performing, we are constantly studying the self, worrying about how we appear, what to say next, whether we're succeeding or failing. But when you are simply sitting, simply eating, with no narrative, you stop holding on to that limited definition of self. You forget the self. Think about those two friends we talked about earlier, one silently suffering a job loss, the other overwhelmed by caregiving. They stop trying to fix or console or narrate their pain. They just eat. In that shared stillness, they are actualized by the 10,000 things. The taste of the warm rice, the quiet of the room, the vulnerability in their tired eyes. The bowl becomes a teacher, not because it offers advice, but because it simply invites you to stop performing.
The power of the ordinary.
Right.
It doesn't demand fanfare. It just waits patiently for our full, unmasked attention.
And if we push this even further, the silence lets us glimpse what Zen calls the original face. There's another famous Kazuran that asks, what was your original face before your parents were born?
Which is, on the surface, totally absurd. But it's profoundly insightful underneath. It's asking, who are you when you strip away all your labels, all your roles, all the stories you tell yourself?
Exactly. At the silent dinner table, without words as your armor, you get a glimpse of the simple, breathing presence underneath all of those social structures. Not the successful worker, not the failed caretaker, but just pure being. And your companion, sitting right there across from you, becomes a mirror of that same pure being. It's raw.
But this process can't always be cozy. Silence, by its very nature, doesn't lie. It reveals what we've been trying to avoid. Unspoken grief, restlessness, maybe a fear of being truly seen. We're confronting ourselves. The question is, can you stay with that discomfort? Can you trust that the discomfort is a kind of intimacy in its rawest form?
That is the crucial confrontation. We rush to fill the silence because we're afraid of what it will reveal. Modern life has taught us that connection requires constant output texts, comments, witty replies, endless communication. Zen whispers the exact opposite.
Oh.
True connection flourishes in shared stillness, not because nothing is happening, but because everything is happening. All the unspoken truth of the relationship is right there in the room.
It's like we've learned to separate ourselves from the moment. You see the opposite in young children. They haven't learned that yet. A kid might stare at a single pea on their plate as if it holds all the universe's secrets. They're just completely absorbed.
They have that primal attention. And the dinner table is a portal back to that. It's a chance to unlearn the noise. When you can be fully present over a simple bowl of rice, you start to carry that presence into everything else. The traffic, the difficult meeting, the urgent email, the whole world suddenly becomes your meditation hall because you've accessed that stillness within you.
Okay, let's move to that threshold moment. The pause after the last bite. The dishes are still there, the last bit of light is fading, but the chaotic world is waiting right outside the door. How do we carry this stillness, this insight, back into that chaos? The emails, the deadlines, the traffic jams, it sounds almost impossible to sustain.
This brings us to the final and most necessary paradox. Real stillness is not a state to be preserved. You can't hold on to it like water slipping through your fingers. It's a rhythm, availability that you live. True presence isn't about retreating from chaos. It lives most vibrantly right in the heart of all the movement.
That still sounds like a high bar. How do I, as the, turbulent river of modern life, keep the stillness when the pressure is really on?
Think of the Zen image of the moon reflected in a turbulent river. The water, which is the chaos of your life, the deadlines, the traffic, the stress, it churns relentlessly and the surface breaks apart. But the moon, which is your inherent stillness, it remains whole, undisturbed.
Because the moon, my inner peace, doesn't depend on the river being perfectly calm.
Exactly. Your stillness doesn't depend on perfect external conditions. It depends only on your willingness to return to the simple breath, to the grounding moment, to the silence beneath the noise. The insight is so subtle. The ordinary is sacred precisely because it doesn't claim to be. The teacup doesn't announce its holiness. It just exists.
And that quiet existence is what makes it trustworthy. It just is.
So eternity then isn't somewhere far away waiting at the end of some long spiritual path. It's folded into this time, fully inhabited. The warmth of the bowl in your hands, the light on your companion's face. The biggest shift is the realization that you carry the dinner table within you. You have an open, quiet space that's ready to receive the next moment exactly as it is, without needing to fight it or change it. You don't need to become more peaceful. You just need to realize that you are peace.
Just temporarily obscured like a clear sky hidden by passing clouds.
Precisely. The noise and the thoughts are just weather. The sky remains. The deep silence doesn't linger as a memory of some peaceful dinner you once had, but as a current availability, a readiness to be present for whatever comes next.
So the most radical act isn't to speak louder or to make grand announcements about our wisdom. It's just to listen more deeply.
To trust the quiet. To trust that your simple, breathing humanity, unmasked by words, is utterly and completely sufficient. That is the quiet revolution. What if the sound of silence over dinner isn't silence at all, but the voice of life itself, speaking in a language older than words? Don't answer. Just listen. In that listening, there you are.